I'm going to show you how I made this 6-pocket tote bag. With a final size measuring 8 inches by 10 inches by 4 inches, it is a great storage solution. You'll need 2 pieces of fabric for the exterior pocket, which measure 14.5 inches by 16.5 inches and are folded in half. The straps measure 4 inches wide and 34.5 inches long. Use an iron to press them into quarters. And for the lining, or that purple fabric, you'll use 14.5 inches by 20.5 inches, and those will also be pressed in half for the initial first steps. If you want this tote bag to tuck under your arm, you may need to make the straps slightly longer. Start by top stitching 1/8 from the edge of both of the straps. When I top stitch, I like to lengthen that stitch length to about a 3.5 or a 4. Just don't forget to change it back. I use this purple fabric for my main body of the bag, and it also ends up doubling as the lining. For this piece, you're going to want to put a piece of batting on it that is 10.25 inches by 14.25 inches, which is exactly half. And then I made sure to give it a nice crisp iron along that half line. You're going to want to make sure you give yourself a really good crisp line there for when you turn it inside out. To box the corners, you're going to mark out a 2-inch by 2-inch square off the bottom of all 4 panels. Cut those however you feel comfortable, but just try to cut them as accurately and evenly as you can. When that is done, this is what it should look like. You should have 2 cuts out of the bottom of each of the 4 panels. Now we'll begin assembling the first part of our bag. It's very important that you open up that purple or lining piece, and you're going to attach the pocket and the straps to the bag. You want to make sure you're doing this on the batting side of that bag. You want to bring it in 2.5 inches from each of the boxed corners, and those 2 straps will be 4 inches apart. Now from the bottom of the bag, you will stitch up the strap, pivot at the top of the pocket, and then go back down to the bottom of the bag. Try to follow that top stitch line that you already did on your handles. Place right sides together and pin or clip all the way around the bag. You will sew the sides and the bottom, and then but for the lining piece, you want to make sure that you only sew about 1.5 inches or so from each side, or just make sure you leave yourself an opening that is about the width of your hand so that you can more easily flip the bag. Now to create the boxed corners, you will open up the bag and match your side and bottom seams together. This is a little tricky because you need to make sure that the pocket sides are on the correct side. Once you have made sure that the pockets go to the sides correctly, you'll match those seams, and then you will sew across in order to box out all 4 of those corners. All right, this next step is the most exciting. You want to make sure that you have gotten good seams and caught everything, and then you are ready to birth your bag. So you will reach in through that opening in the lining, and then you will carefully just start to turn the bag inside out and flip it. I did have a little problem with my fusible fleece there not attaching, and I used a heavy, thick canvas, so it was probably part of the reason why it did not fuse as well. So I just kept that in mind when I flipped the bag to make sure I didn't get that corner bent. The other challenge with this bag is because of that batting. If you don't have a stiff enough batting, it can be a little hard to get that nice crisp top line, and that's why I mentioned you want to make sure you iron it really well when you started. Putting the lining inside of the bag is where you really need to just kind of carefully make sure you're getting that line to match up. Once you're done with that and you get it the way you want, you can go ahead and top stitch around the bag to hold that in place and make sure that it doesn't shift. So you can see the pockets there are super cute. You've got that nice handle. It doesn't really fit very well under the crook of your arm, so if it's something you want to carry, you'll want to make those longer. And if you wanted, you could also reverse the way the pockets are and have the pockets on the inside instead of the exterior. And if you wanted the pockets to hold bulkier items, you could make the pocket material a little bit wider than the lining material, and that would give you an ability to kind of pucker those pockets out so that they could hold wider things. Thanks for joining me today with Black Hills Sewing. I appreciate your engagement. Have a great day.